The Orioles' winning streak being overshadowed by safety concerns. A closer look at how crime is playing a factor on Camden Yards attendance. And state officials are asking for feedback on the Red Line plan. Hear Governor Moore's sales pitch as an economist says it isn't what taxpayers want.
And the heat, the humidity, and the storms are finally gone. I'll let you know what to expect for the rest of the weekend in a couple of minutes.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
Good Sunday morning to you. Looking live over Towson right now. And it's just a pretty glorious morning. That sun was really beaming as I was driving through this morning. You're with us here on Sunday, July 30th, final Sunday of the month. I'm Taylor Stewart. Let's get to your forecast. Meteorologist Amy Aronson. It was hot yesterday.
Yeah, it was hot, it was humid, and then it was stormy again. So here's a look back at some of the damage reports from the storms that moved through yesterday during the late afternoon, early evening hours. D.C. area had a ton of damage, seeing lots of flooding reports and down trees there. For us locally, we did have some wind damage. Also a few down trees just north and east of Baltimore up towards Bel Air. So we had some damage from the storms, but now fortunately they're long gone. Radar looks much better this morning. Temperatures feel much better. Mid-60s to near 70 to begin, but what's making the difference? The dew point. That drier air has taken over. A couple of days ago, these were in the 70s. Today, they're down a solid 10 degrees, back in the low 60s. And that's that drier air taking over. So if you've been holding off on jogging, running, maybe walking the dog on extra long walks, this morning is for you. Feels so much better out there, nice and refreshing. Temperatures in the low 70s to begin, mid 70s to end, with nothing but sunshine. Now, coming up in 10 minutes, I'll walk you through the rest of your Sunday forecast, hour by hour, and we'll also take a look ahead at the work week, and I'll show you when we are tracking that next chance for some storms. Taylor?
All right, nice start. We begin this morning in a city in crisis. In northwest Baltimore, police say officers tased an armed teenager. This happened yesterday evening along Boardman Avenue and Reisterstown Road. Here's a look at the large police presence on that scene just before 7 o'clock last night. We obtained surveillance video from a nearby store owner. Police tell us they were chasing a 15-year-old attempting to make a handgun arrest. And you can see that teen throw that gun into a nearby building as he runs away. Seconds later, another camera angle shows an officer appearing to tase the suspect, who then falls face first onto the sidewalk. Police tell us that teen was taken to shock trauma with non-life-threatening injuries. Now, a few seconds later here, though, police are seen going back into the building where the gun was thrown, finding it and bringing it out. This is what police say they recovered at the scene. Now, we'll continue to bring you those updates as they become available. Police are also investigating two shootings in South Baltimore. A 19-year-old was shot along West Saratoga Street around 2:30 Saturday morning. He is expected to survive. But just 3 hours earlier, a 22-year-old woman was shot along the 3600 block of Benson Avenue. This is right across the street from the Cutting Edge sign shop. If you know anything about any of these incidents, give Metro Crime Stoppers a call. Their number, 1-866-7-LOCK-UP. Well, the Orioles are having their best season in almost a decade. But despite the home runs and RBIs, ticket sales are only half capacity for home games. Vincent Hill spoke to a local economist who says Baltimore's crime crisis could be to blame.
The Orioles are #1 in the AL East, something not seen since 2014. Mayor Brandon Scott is confident the team will go all the way.
And I look forward to seeing us win the World Series and eliminate the Spankies in the playoffs later this year at Oriole Park.
But when it comes to filling seats, the O's are ranked 23rd out of the 30 MLB teams, according to BaseballReference.com.
So the mayor should be talking about, we care about your safety when you come to Baltimore. We take that very seriously. We're doing things to make you safer in a city that has been quite dangerous historically.
Economist Aniban Basu says the mayor should be less focused on home runs and more on crime stats that could be affecting ticket sales.
A lot of people have become accustomed to not going to downtown Baltimore. Not having those fans come downtown, that has a huge negative economic impact.
In the backdrop of Camden Yards, the murder of Timothy Reynolds by a squeegee kid last year. This year, 2 shootings, 2 carjackings, and 4 robberies, all within a mile of the field. Basu says the O's attendance is not the only thing at stake because of crimes around the ballpark.
You're not just celebrating its success and rooting for our team against the Yankees or whomever it happens to be. but it's a community event. It's our shared community well-being that's at stake.
The mayor himself acknowledging changes need to be made.
We want to see at Camden Yards what you see around other ballparks: more development, more activation, more things happening.
Basu believes those changes may not come until the bottom of the ninth for the Scott administration.
It's a change in the air. We have a mayoral election next year. And so I really view, and this might sound naive, that Baltimore City is going to have a great renaissance later this decade.
Now, so far this year, there have been 775 gun arrests.
To powerful special interest groups, then the red line makes perfect sense. Who benefits from it are the builders, the rail contractors, the rail car manufacturers.
O'Toole's biggest critique, though, ridership does not stack up against the cost. In 2021, according to the Census Bureau, just over 3% of people took Baltimore public transit to work. A post-pandemic drop, though, from an already low 7% in 2019.
No way that it makes sense to spend that much money to carry that few riders. They don't ride transit to work. Less than 10% take transit to work. And yet the taxes that are used to support transit are, many of them are very regressive.
The regional transit plan anticipates the presence of the metro as an option would increase the number of people who opt out of driving in favor for a ride on the red line, essentially cutting down on congestion.
They're going to say congestion is terrible. We need to fix it. Light rail is the solution. Well, light rail makes congestion worse. You're going to have light rail in the streets. You're going to have light rail crossing streets. And these big light rail trains are going to be occupying a lot of space. They're not going to be carrying very many people.
Those are the kind of concerns leaders want to hear about as the plan now moves into the development phase, with public comment ending on August 2nd. Now, Governor Moore is hoping to have that red line up and running as soon as this fall. He says it'll be able to provide a vital pipeline between Baltimore and surrounding communities.
This city has hundreds of thousands of jobs, but people cannot access them easily. They understood that we have some of the best colleges and hospitals, museums and theaters in the world, and they're all difficult to get to. They understood that our economy is stable but not dynamic, and that our GDP has been falling behind cities like Washington and Philadelphia and Boston for years.
Now, his announcement comes 8 years after former Governor Larry Hogan killed the light rail project in 2015, which triggered a Title IX investigation. At the time, that project was slated for just under $3 billion.
This is going to be very expensive. We're talking about almost $3 billion for this 14-mile line. So that is about $200 million per mile. That's expensive. So I'm really concerned about the price tag, but also that it's really not going to serve as many people as they'd hoped.
The federal government had then committed to covering almost a third of that price tag, but Governor Moore says he's also applied for federal grants. Baltimore is seeing a significant rise in car theft. Why some are saying finding and holding car thieves accountable is an uphill battle. And after the break, the Maryland State School Superintendent contract delayed. Fox 45's Project Baltimore team is looking into why that is. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all The Maryland State Department of Education is facing allegations of a toxic workplace culture and changing how test scores are reported to the public. As Project Baltimore's Chris Pabst explains, the state school board now has decided to delay a decision on whether to offer Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry another contract.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call today's meeting to order.
Maryland School Superintendent Mohammed Chaudhry was absent at Tuesday's State Board of Education meeting.
Sir, can you just tell us where Mr. Chaudhry is? Why he's not here today?
He's on vacation.
He is on vacation?
Even though, on this day, the board was scheduled to vote on renewing Chaudhry's contract. That is largely why former Maryland State Department of Education employee Robert Eccles was at the meeting, because he had a lot to say about MSDE's leadership under Chaudhry.
Who's taking responsibility for all these glaring leadership failings? I respectfully ask the board to rethink its working definition of brilliant and transformational leadership.
Eccles spoke during public comment.
Transformational leaders actually lead people and don't disparage them. They invite feedback and can take criticism without retaliation. Brilliant leaders prioritize delivering on time. They care more about collaboration than control.
Chaudhry's current contract ends on June 30th, 2024. The school board could have offered him a 4-year contract Tuesday, but instead chose to continue deliberating. Chaudhry has publicly stated he wants to remain on the job, but over the last few months, his future at MSDE has been challenged.
The ongoing unacceptable practices at MSD further embarrass the whole state.
Eccles, in May, first addressed the state board, testifying that 10 former MSDE employees recently wrote letters to the board calling for an independent investigation into what he called a toxic workplace culture, which is leading to high attrition rates. Chaudhry's office responded in a statement saying Eccles' information is incorrect and misleading.
And you've heard stories about a toxic culture in MSDE. That's correct.
But it's not just Eccles complaining about the work environment at MSDE.
That's right.
Brian Thompson runs the blog Informed Carroll County, a petition he posted on change.org calling for Chaudhry to resign quickly gathered more than 2,500 signatures.
Because I believe the Maryland State Department of Education is in a worse place now than it's ever been, and I don't see it getting any better.
This whistleblower, who we agreed not to identify for fear of retaliation, signed Thompson's petition. This person worked in a leadership position at MSDE under Chaudhry.
This is nothing but a cover-up.
And it's dishonest. It's hiding the ball. It's hiding the truth from parents.
Lawmakers, parents, and special interest groups like the Maryland Public Policy Institute have also spoken out.
This comes after the agency.
Project Baltimore, in April, broke the news that the Maryland State Department of Education, without informing the public, changed how it reports test scores, hiding much of the data behind asterisks. Parents and taxpayers can no longer see how many schools are performing on state tests. When Project Baltimore first tried to speak with Chaudhry about it, he locked himself behind a door.
Mr. Chaudhry, Chris Pabst with FOX45. Can we ask you a couple questions about your department removing test scores from the website?
At the following state board meeting, 1 month later in May, Chaudhry did agree to speak with us.
No, we're
for 5 minutes. I gotta meet with the president.
But many of our questions
Just give me a moment.
were not answered.
This has all been laid out for you.
There's also this January audit of MSDE, released by the Office of Legislative Audits. The report issued 9 findings, ranging from issues with cybersecurity and bidding contracts to how MSDE approves state grants. The audit also found MSDE did not properly monitor how school systems use funding for the blueprint, Maryland's education overhaul. But similar to other issues, MSDE declined an interview, but said in a statement, those assertions are false.
I naively expected this body would be spurred to conduct a third-party investigation after receiving first-hand accounts of abuse, harassment, and intimidation in a toxic workplace.
Eccles told FOX45 he spoke at this meeting because he wants the state board to know what is happening at MSDE before it votes on Chaudhry's contract. Because Eccles says a lot is at stake.
This current MSD playbook will doom the blueprint to fall short of our expectations and cause many, many educational dreams to be deferred. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
All right, after 3 weather alert days, we're moving into somewhat cooler temperatures. A live look now at Towson and the harbor as drier air returns. And look at the sunshine. Let's get over to meteorologist Amy Aronson. It's going to be a lot cooler, a little cooler today, but yesterday was just before the storms.
Brutally hot. Yeah, day 3 of it, we had enough of the heat, the humidity, at least for now, and the storms too. We're going to take a break from all of that. But first, let's take a look back at our 90-degree day counter because we've added a couple of 90-degree days to the mix here. So far for the year, we're now at 21 days. Still puts us slightly below average. On average, we pick up about 30 a year. No 100-degree days yet, although it certainly felt like it the past couple of days. Last year, we ended up with 48 days with temperatures at or above 90 degrees. Today, we've got the sunshine. We've had the sunshine for the past couple of days. The problem has been the intense heat plus the humidity. That's not the case anymore. We're back at a comfortable 70 degrees this morning. No humidity on our hands. Mid-80s is where we're headed today. So we are enjoying that break from the heat, the humidity, and a mostly dry start to the week, too. We are tracking storms by week's end, so some showers and some storms pop up again starting on Thursday. But in the meantime, we're saying goodbye to our latest weather maker, and thank you for bringing us a break from the heat and the humidity. That did send us some pretty feisty storms yesterday evening. We have some damage reports from that, especially down towards D.C. Flooding and downed trees were an issue there. That front continues to sink southward, taking all the humidity along with it. So drier air now filtering in from the north and taking over and continuing to take over for the next couple of days. Temperatures much more manageable. If you've been putting off doing yard work, cutting the grass because of the high heat, today's your day. Feels so much better. We're in the low to mid 80s around lunchtime and straight through the afternoon. We are tracking a few showers overnight, though. They are very spotty, not a big deal. No severe weather here. They move through while most of us are sleeping. We will wrap up with a couple of showers right around sunrise tomorrow, but then after that, clouds should give way to sun. And it's another really pleasant day with drier air filtering in and high temperatures in the mid 80s again. Today looks great for whatever you want to do outside, enjoy some time on the water, maybe go boating. Temperatures end up in the upper 80s today, but it's actually going to feel like these numbers because we're not dealing with humidity. Plus, we're not dealing with any storm chances, just a mix of sun and clouds today. For grilling plans tonight, you're good leading up to sunset. The showers would scoot through late, mainly after midnight. So if you've been holding off grilling outside because of the storms each evening, tonight looks much better for that, too. Looking ahead at our 7-day forecast shows barely any 90s. We are wrapping up July tomorrow already. I did throw in that stray shower chance early on, but after that, we're mostly dry straight through Wednesday with highs in the low 80s. We are tracking another weather maker Thursday and Friday. Neither day is a complete washout, but we are calling for some spotty storms both days. And it looks like high temperatures will actually stay in the 80s now all the way through next Saturday. Taylor?
Sounds good. Well, the FIFA Women's World Cup underway this morning. How that's going to impact your Fox 45 morning news lineup this week. And Mega Millions, well, more like Mega Billions. Still ahead, find out your next chance to become a billionaire. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning. The FIFA Women's World Cup is underway this morning in Germany. They're currently playing Colombia. Now, both teams are tied 1-1 and currently going into overtime for 5 minutes. Here are the scores from earlier that happened this morning. Morocco beat South Korea 1-0. Norway beat out the Philippines 6-0. Lastly, Switzerland and New Zealand tied, with neither teams getting a goal. Fox 45 News is your home for the FIFA Women's World Cup, which will create some changes for our morning lineup starting tomorrow. You can watch our morning newscast at 4:30 a.m. on the CW Baltimore, while the World Cup action plays out right here on Fox 45. Once the World Cup broadcast ends, our 8 a.m. newscast will return to Fox 45. And then on Tuesday, slightly different again. Our morning news is going to return at Fox 45 around 9 a.m. The U.S. women will be playing against Portugal, so check that out. And then on Wednesday, we'll be starting at the CW again, 4:30 a.m., and then back to Fox 45 at 8. Ravens wrap up week 1 of training camp with an open practice at M&T Stadium. Still ahead on Sports Unlimited, who stood out and why? Highs are going to be in the upper 80s today. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is letting us know how your first week of August is shaping up. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News Weekend Edition, all local, all
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
Good morning to you. Look at that sun. We are starting off on the right foot on this final, I guess this is the final day of July. One more day, I guess. It's Sunday, July 30th. I'm Taylor Stewart. Let's get to your forecast. Meteorologist Amy Aronson with some good news about the humidity.
Yeah, and close. One more day, right? We are counting down to the start of August. We've got today and tomorrow in July, and then it's back into August. So temperatures are actually going the opposite direction for a change. Instead of heating up, we're actually going to cool things down as we kick off a brand new month. We are down about 4 to 5 degrees now in most locations, so it does feel much better already. But what's making the difference? The humidity. Humidity levels have dropped significantly in wake of our latest weather maker. Brings us back into the upper 60s to near 70 this morning. Feels refreshing, especially compared to where we've been the past couple of days. As we head through the rest of your Sunday, looks fantastic. get outside, enjoy some fresh air. Low 80s around midday, mid to upper 80s as we head through the afternoon. Now, coming up in 10 minutes, I'll let you know exactly how long this break from the heat, the humidity, and the storms is going to last, especially as we officially kick off that first full week of August. Taylor?
In a city in crisis, we are seeing a significant rise in car thefts this year. Nearly 400 cars were stolen last week alone. But as Fox 45's Amy Simpson explains, finding and holding car thieves accountable is an uphill battle.
This week, it was a BPD car.
We've had a departmental car that's been stolen with police equipment in it.
An unmarked 2018 silver Kia Optima. Just one of the latest to be stolen by thieves in Baltimore City.
It's a serious public safety hazard because these cars are, they're stolen. Usually it's juveniles that are doing it. It's that TikTok challenge.
This week, the safety chair of the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association pointing to a social media craze, prompting some Hyundais and Kias to be hot-wired with just a USB cable. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration also blaming TikTok, saying millions of cars nationwide are potential targets. But even as the car makers offer free software upgrades to bolster security for impacted models, the thefts only continue. Between July 1st and July 23rd, Baltimore police say 312 Hyundais and 134 Kias were stolen across the city.
But unfortunately, very few of these folks are getting caught, and even fewer are getting actually prosecuted or getting any kind of consequence. So then it becomes like it's a free-for-all. Like, there's very little risk of getting caught, very little downside. Seems pretty safe to do it and get away with it.
Even if a suspect is identified, proving felony theft is no simple task.
Because factually, how do you prove that this person broke into the car and stole the car? Not everybody has a Ring doorbell or security camera.
Attorney Jeremy Eldridge says that's why sometimes a lesser charge is pursued.
The crime at that point may be what's called unauthorized use, meaning you're simply operating a motor vehicle owned by another without their consent.
But this lawyer says unauthorized use is instead a misdemeanor offense and carries a sentence of anywhere from 6 months to 4 years, down from a 5 to 10 year sentence if convicted of felony theft, and levying consequences only more challenging if a juvenile is accused.
When someone is young and they're prosecuted within the juvenile justice system, especially for an auto theft, which is incredibly inconvenient for the victim, but is not a crime of violence, the legislature has mandated essentially that they receive probation. So you're going to see somewhat of a revolving door in these cases.
The best way to protect yourself and your car, this attorney says, install a surveillance camera. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Now, Baltimore leaders recently reached a settlement with Hyundai and Kia for $200 million. It's part of an ongoing lawsuit claiming those cars were just too easy to steal, and the thefts have caused a public nuisance. Youth car thefts are spiking, too, across the state. Just this week, 3 teenage girls were caught by a vehicle owner while trying to steal a car early Friday morning around 2 a.m. in Anne Arundel County. 3 hours later, another attempted car theft happened just a few miles away. Anne Arundel County police arrested a 15-year-old and they were 13 miles away in North Baltimore.
I've been told that they were a bunch of kids. They need to be held accountable for their crimes.
In Baltimore County, 587 Hyundais and 240 Kias have been stolen so far this year. Most of the thefts fueled by that TikTok challenge. A General Assembly committee will meet this fall to hold a hearing on juvenile justice concerns. Luke Klippinger, a Baltimore City delegate and the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, is voicing concerns with the Department of Juvenile Services. The 2022 annual report detailed chronic boredom among kids in juvenile facilities. Some of the problems include limited access to books and few programs available to help rehabilitate them. Klippinger is promising that during the hearing, state's attorney, law enforcement, and DJS will work on ways to hold kids accountable and put them on the right path.
When that happens, that should be a world-stopping occasion. After we passed the legislation, what became clear over the last year is that there are not the services that are necessary for these kids. There just aren't. And we were promised those services.
The representative also saying lawmakers will reevaluate juvenile justice laws. Now, since the rise in juvenile crime, multiple legislators have raised concerns over laws preventing kids from under the age of 13 from being charged with some crimes, limiting the question of juvenile suspects and curbing probation time. Continuing coverage this morning, an autopsy report reveals new details leading up to Roy McGrath's death. McGrath, a former aide to then Governor Larry Hogan, died in a shootout in Tennessee after a weeks-long FBI manhunt. These new findings come nearly 4 months after his death. Jeff Abel has the latest.
We are learning a lot more about the final moments of Roy McGrath's life and about his final words to police. "I have a gun," he told them, "and it's loaded." He was the former governor's chief of staff who was accused of cheating the state out of more than $250,000. But when his federal fraud trial was set to open in March, Roy McGrath was nowhere to be found.
Unfortunately, Mr. McGrath has not appeared in court today, and I'm unaware of where he is or what is going on.
The judge issued a warrant for McGrath's arrest, and the FBI launched a search of his home in Naples, Florida, then began searching the country. 3 weeks later, agents found McGrath sitting in a Cadillac outside a Costco in Knoxville, Tennessee. Documents released detail what happened next. According to the district attorney, officers attempted to stop McGrath, who drove out of the parking lot and down the street. Less than a mile away, with officers in pursuit, investigators say McGrath drove off the highway and came to a stop between a drive-in and an auto supply store. It was here where police say McGrath failed to comply with commands and instead shouted, "I have a gun, and it's loaded." Investigators write that the way McGrath held the handgun placed agents within the trajectory of McGrath's gun. McGrath fired his gun, striking his right temple, and at the same time, the agent fired one round, striking McGrath's left cheek. Autopsy results released say medical examiners were unable to determine which of the two gunshot wounds caused McGrath's death.
And so you've got these simultaneous events going on.
Professor and forensic scientist Joseph Scott Morgan says because of the timing and complexity of the injuries, we may never know if McGrath's life ended by suicide or homicide.
And for this to be such a high-profile case and involving gunplay, and for them not to be able to make a determination and to leave this undetermined, in my experience at least, this is certainly an outlier. This is a 1 in a million event.
Prosecutors have concluded that the agents did act in self-defense. Their actions, they say, was justifiable. They have no plans on filing criminal charges. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
There's also speculation about 2 ebooks released just before McGrath's death, both in support of him. Now, the author credited is Ryan Cooper, someone who Fox 45 News has tried to reach multiple times, but could never positively identify. There's also been talks that McGrath possibly wrote the book himself. When we asked McGrath's attorney if the fugitive could have been the author, he admitted he too had no idea. It's been nearly 4 weeks since the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. After the break, how community members are now coming together to help those in that community.
And we're finally taking a break from the heat, the humidity, the storms, and the 90s. We're back in the 80s today. I'll let you know how long this relief is going to last in a couple of minutes. It's 7:40. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News.
Nearly 4 weeks after the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, Baltimore City Councilman Felicia Porter joined community members there and the M&T Bank Stadium volunteers to bring donations to the Brooklyn Homes Community Center. Donations included food, school supplies, medicine. The shooting left 2 people dead, 28 others injured. The search is still ongoing for suspects in this case. Police say more than a dozen guns were used, and so far they've arrested a 17-year-old who's not being charged with the shooting, but is facing weapons and riot charges.
Capitol Hill lawmakers debating the best way to mitigate pandemic learning loss. I'm Kayla Gaskins in Washington. Coming up, a Harvard professor offers his solution.
Get a hot, fresh pizza delivered right at your fingertips. After the break, how one pizza maker is planning to change the game of pizza on the go. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local. Data increasingly shows the pandemic had a devastating impact on education. National correspondent Kayla Gaskin joins us from Capitol Hill, where lawmakers held an investigative hearing to scope out the problem and what to do about it.
The slip in academic performance since the pandemic is stark.
In only a matter of 2 years, a generation of progress was lost.
A concerned Congress taking an in-depth look at what happened and the impact of government decisions.
Multiple factors drove these losses, but chief among them, extended school closures, a factor policymakers had control over.
And how we ended up with the lowest test outcomes in decades.
The great irony of COVID is how a majority of parents who so easily predicted online education and school closures would be detrimental for students, and how so many bureaucratic education experts with all the research power in the world took years to reach the same conclusion.
Democrats say leaders made the best decisions they could with limited information and scarce resources like testing kits.
School leaders did not take this decision lightly.
Harvard education and economics professor Thomas Kane co-led a study analyzing pandemic-era learning losses at the district level.
What these results say is not everybody's in the same boat.
Richmond, Virginia schools, for example, had some of the longest closures in the country, and it shows.
Richmond and Roanoke saw losses approaching 2 years worth of achievement.
While kids aren't losing ground anymore, Kane says they're also not making up for what they lost.
Students are not going to catch up without substantial increases in instructional time.
Richmond Public Schools tacking on 20 additional school days in a pilot program launched at 2 elementary schools.
If we don't help kids catch up, We're forcing kids to pay the price for the pandemic.
School systems nationwide experimenting with adding days or year-round learning. And while that comes with a high price tag, Kane points out school systems were given $190 billion in COVID relief funds, and catching kids up is how that money should be spent. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
Trending now, the company that makes pizza that you toss in your oven at home may be tossing them your way soon and in a lot of other places. DiGiorno's, who says it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno's, could deliver you on-the-go pizza through vending machines. Nestle USA, DiGiorno's home company, is testing them out at Colorado, Walmart's, and its own Ohio campus. The vending machines have a commercial-grade oven and stored frozen 10-inch thin crust cheese pizza, and they cook in 3 minutes for $9 a pop. So Nestle says future locations could include college campuses, home improvement stores, and sports venues. Pizza in a vending machine. All right. Okay. Well, Chick-fil-A is bringing some changes and to its look and its function at the fast food chain. The plans are to test an elevated drive-through in Atlanta. It will allow you to just walk up and digitally order. Chick-fil-A says the changes are designed to improve ordering and digital assistance. The Atlanta drive-through will have 4 traffic lanes running under the kitchen with space for up to 75 cars. New York's walk-up version will be exclusively for picking up mobile orders and is intended for highly populated areas with high foot traffic. The concepts are expected to open in 2024. Now, the Mega Billions is now worth more than $1 billion. This is after nobody won that top prize Friday night. It is the 4th largest jackpot in Mega Millions history, and it comes with a lump sum option of over $500 million if you want to take the money and run. That next drawing is scheduled for Tuesday night, and the chances of winning, they're rough. Yeah, 1 in 300 million. All right, well, we're not gambling with the weather today because we're getting a little break from the humidity. Meteorologist Amy Aronson here to tell us about it.
Yeah, big break from the humidity today. It's finally going to feel so much better. Also taking a break from the rain. We've actually had a lot of it this month. For the month of July, we're running above average and just a couple days to go, of course. We're coming in close to 7 inches. So that helps us catch up for the year. For the year so far, we're at 21 inches, so just slightly below where we should be right now. Typically, we pick up about 25 inches at this point in the season. So we're only down by about 4 inches. If you've been putting off anything outside because of the heat, the humidity, and the storms, today's your day. Perfect day to knock out some yard work, maybe cut the grass, some pool time. It's going to be all sunshine. Also a nice calm day on the water if you plan to do some boating on the bay. Whatever you're doing today, make sure you send us your pictures. Send them to us by going to foxbaltimore.com/chime-in, and then we can share them right here on Fox 45 tomorrow morning. So we have bright sunshine. That is now making an appearance in the sky along with blue skies. That's all we can see. Plus, we're enjoying a nice quiet day temperature-wise. We're near 70 degrees, no wind at all. Dew points are way down. The past couple of days, they've been well into the 70s. We're down in the low 60s. The lower the dew point, the drier the air. And right now, I'm tracking pretty dry stuff. And that's all in wake of a cold front that moved through yesterday, sent us some pretty powerful storms yesterday evening. That is now long gone, and we are tracking dry air filtering in from the north behind that. And that's going to continue to be the case over the next couple of days. We do have one tiny disturbance scooting its way through overnight. Not a huge deal. Some rain overnight tonight while most of us are sleeping. Scoots out of here tomorrow morning. Couple of stray showers to kick off your Monday. Otherwise, we're mostly dry again with clouds giving way to sun. And that's what's going to be the case through much of next week. Temperatures much better today. Taking 90s back out of the mix. We're starting off in the 70s. We end up in the mid to upper 80s today. Same for your Monday. We actually start off in the 60s and then temperatures warm into the low 80s during the afternoon. So perfect for some pool time. Over the next 7 days, we stay in the 80s, actually. So as we say goodbye to July and kick off August on Tuesday, temperatures will actually be running slightly below average. We should be in the upper 80s. Instead, we're talking low to mid 80s for a couple of days. Our next weather maker arrives by the end of the week. Plan on some spotty storms with that Thursday and Friday. Temperature-wise, we're still in good shape. We're in the 80s all the way through next Saturday. Taylor?
All right, sounds good. Well, the Orioles, they're playing in New York. The Yankees, that starts today at 7 p.m. at Camden Yards. After the break, Rocco DeSangro has a breakdown of their 3-game series so far. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local.
Welcome into your morning sports report. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Friday night's game between the O's and the Yankees saw a 2-hour delay. But for the fans that stayed up and watched Anthony Santander's walk-off after midnight at Camden Yards, the wait was well worth it. Game 2 against New York. You watch this one right here on Fox 45. Ryan Mountcastle ties it up at 1 with a solo shot to the flag court, while Brandon Hyde is being interviewed by Ken Rosenthal. How about that? Still in the inning, Ramon Arias going to leg out an infield single, hustling down the base paths. Adam Frazier scores. O's lead 2-1, but not for long because of that guy. Aaron Judge, second game back. 2-run shot off Tyler Wells in the third. Wells 2 2/3, 3 hits, 3 earned. Another rough outing for him. New York up 5-3 in the sixth. Brian Baker into pitch. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa clears the bases with a 3-run double. Just not the O's night. They fall to the Yankees 8-3. That sets up a rubber match between the two teams tonight. Here's how those AL East standings look right now. The Birds still hold that top spot in the division with 1.5 game lead over the Rays. The Blue Jays, Red Sox, and Yankees all follow. The O's wrap up that series tonight on Sunday Night Baseball. The Texas Rangers have their eyes on the prize, trading with the New York Mets for star right-hander Max Scherzer, according to multiple reports. Scherzer will opt into the 2024 season with the Texas Rangers, and the Rangers will pay him $22.5 million, that according to Jeff Passan of ESPN. New York is going to receive prospect Luis Angel Acuna in the trade. Texas currently in third place in the AL, behind the Rays and the O's. After 3 days of practice in Owings Mills, the Ravens stepped away from their training facility and gave fans a show at M&T Bank Stadium. While it was another hot day in Baltimore, wasn't going to keep Ravens flock from watching their team in person. Really solid crowd despite the heat. J.K. Dobbins and Rashad Bateman were both out on the field in sweats watching the action. Isaiah Likely, really solid day for the second-year tight end. Odell Beckham Jr., probably his best day in camp so far. Watch him beat Marlon Humphrey in coverage for a touchdown. That wasn't a touchdown because it was called back due to holding. Great play nonetheless. Then he makes a diving catch a few plays later. Without a doubt, the most active OBJ has been so far in Ravens training camp.
Right. I mean, I think Odell's got a really good plan, and he did. He had a nice day today. He looks a little better every day. He looked great out there. I expect nothing but classic Odell Beckham Jr. And he's a hard worker. He's very conscientious about what he does. So I have no concerns about that at all. He looked good today.
Zay Flowers missed Friday's practice and did not participate on Saturday. But you see him here. He was on the sidelines in street clothes and a mask. John Harbaugh says the rookie wideout is dealing with a stomach bug, but he should be back on Monday. As for Ronnie Stanley, he was a full participant at the stadium practice after missing Friday's session. When the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson out of Louisville, he promised to bring a Super Bowl to Baltimore. While that hasn't happened yet, the former league MVP is entering year 6, and he's doing his best to hold up his end of the bargain. Following Saturday's practice, Jackson not only talked about the support he's received from the city, but some unfinished business he'd like to attend to.
I love the city, man. I didn't want to go nowhere else. I'm glad we got the situation worked out. I just love playing in this atmosphere, man. Ever since I've been watching, Ed Reed, Ray Lewis, those guys since I was a kid, I want to have my name hung up there in the Raptors, have my jersey hung up there in the Raptors, retire Hall of Famer, Super Bowl winner here. I just love it. I love everything about it. I really want that goal at the end of the season, in February, to be in Las Vegas and bringing the trophy back to Baltimore.
That's your morning sports report. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Have a great Sunday.
Crime is up, but arrests are down, and critics are questioning the city's response to gun violence. Coming up, more on how City Council is fighting to hold safe streets accountable. And is your car at risk for theft? Well, if you own a Hyundai or a Kia, it might be. We'll let you know why some criminals are continuing to target these vehicles and what police are trying to do to stop it.
And after another stormy night, we're finally taking a break from the heat and the humidity. I'll let you know what to expect for your Sunday in a couple of minutes.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
Good morning to you. Looking live over Towson this morning on Sunday the 30th. Yeah, the final Sunday of July. Good morning to you. I'm Taylor Stewart. Let's jump right in with your weather. Meteorologist Amy Aronson. A little bit of a break in the heat today, too.
Yeah, big break from the heat, the humidity, the storms, all the things we've been dealing with the past couple of days. Here's a look at some of the damage reports from last night's storms. If you are waking up to any downed trees or branches, this is a look back at where the worst damage was seen. Most of it was just south of here, down towards D.C., actually down towards Anne Arundel County. They had lots of wind reports there. So some very gusty storms rolled through, but now we're reaping the benefits of the storm, and that's the comfortable temperatures. So if you have to clean up the yard a little bit, at least it feels nice out there. Upper 60s, low 70s this morning. Dew points are also way down. That's that drier air that's sinking in and taking over. These numbers were in the 70s the past couple of days. Now we're a far cry from that. We're back in the low 60s. Feels fantastic out there. If your dog's itching for a longer walk, go for it this morning. You have nothing but sunshine on your side, plus temperatures will be warming through the 70s, ending up in the upper 70s by the end of the morning. Coming up in 10 minutes, I'll let you know exactly how long this relief from the heat and the humidity and the storms is expected to last. Taylor?
All right, sounds good. Police are still investigating two shootings in South Baltimore. A 19-year-old was shot along West Saratoga Street around 2:30 Saturday morning. He is expected to survive. But just 3 hours earlier, a 22-year-old woman was shot along the 3600 block of Benson Avenue. This is right across the street from the Cutting Edge sign shop. If you know anything about either one of these incidents, give Metro Crime Stoppers a call. That number, 1-8667-LOCK-UP. Meanwhile, so far this year, there have been 775 gun arrests across the city. That is a 2.6% decline compared to this time last year. According to city data posted on Open Baltimore, during the June 21st public safety meeting at City Hall, Fox 45 News questioned Baltimore police, asking why the sudden decline in gun arrest.
Gun arrests citywide year to date are down. They're down a little bit from last year. One district, they're up very significantly, the Eastern District.
The Eastern District shows a 163% increase in gun arrests, and this is according to former Baltimore Police Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson. It's likely coming down to enforcement and added resources. Meanwhile, Baltimore police and the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement are still facing questions about their response to the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting. Now, President Nick Mosby said on WBAL radio the responsibility should fall mostly on Baltimore police rather than Safe Streets.
When there is a weapon involved in an interruption or an interaction, we need to know about it. We also need to know something when we're paying for it.
But that wasn't information that the police department didn't already know. If our safeguard is having Safe Street go into a crowd, 4 guys go into a crowd of 700 people to communicate to our police department that there's guns and knives in there and that they should come in there, we have a problem.
All right, joining us now, Giovanni Patterson, the chairman of PEACE, People for Elected Accountability. So let's talk about this. I just want to go dovetail off of what we just heard there. Yeah. Police or Safe Streets, when we're 4 weeks out, we're still talking about where the responsibility lies. Police or Safe Streets, what do you think in terms of what President Nick Mosby had to say?
Well, again, I think it's a combination of efforts. I mean, you had people calling 911 that day, alerting for police, and then you also had, Safe Streets on the ground. There should have been some coordinated effort or responsibility to share information that what was happening was happening. I mean, there were reports of guns. Safe Streets was on the ground. They know weapons were involved. So there should have been some coordinated effort to share that information and resources.
Let's go back here, because in the days now leading up, we've had Councilman Antonio Glover call for a spending freeze for Muncie. 40 people. Over $20 million, 40 people are employed through this organization. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on a possible freeze until there are more answers provided?
Well, I think this comes down to the main point of providing that transparency. And, you know, the mayor has said, you know, has built this campaign, and where he stands on everything with city government is equity. And, you know, we want equity in all these, you know, different areas. But is it equity for the people of Baltimore to not know what's going on with many of these organizations? But I really think this Safe Streets incident and what this is highlighting is the lack of transparency within city government, and it's putting a spotlight on how it happens. I mean, we see the same things happening with some of the bike lanes going on in Gwynns Falls Parkway, you know, and some of the, you know, other housing development projects that are happening, and it's all hinges on keeping the people in the dark of what's going on.
I think the question becomes, because we've seen city leaders really back up Safe Streets, and they say that there is a strong presence in the community, and they are truly diffusing situations. I guess the question becomes, how can they provide that level of transparency if it is something that is intimately embedded in these communities, as they've said, that where they don't want to reveal people's identities?
Well, look, you know, people aren't saying let's not leverage what Safe Streets can provide. People aren't saying let's, you know, get rid of Safe Streets. No one's saying that. What people are saying is what is being done? You know, what are the metrics? Why are we sending all this money from our pockets, you know, into these organizations if they're allowed to not share with us what's going on? That's what people are saying.
And what do you think needs to happen at this point? We've been talking about this mass shooting for weeks now, and it's horrific, and there's still so many unanswered questions, and no arrest made in the shooting per se. We only have one arrest for a 17-year-old who's facing riot charges and weapons charges. As this investigation unfolds, what kind of a transparency and accountability measures do you need to see in place to feel comfortable as you represent people in the city?
Well, look, I mean, when the people are asking questions, or whether it's the media asking questions, or whether it's a council member asking questions, I think you just need to be forthright and forthcoming and truthful. You know, and we do need citizens of Baltimore to stand up and say and share information, or, you know, if we know what's going on, and, you know, especially with this Brooklyn Homes, because I'm pretty sure people know, you know, what happened and who you know, who was involved. So everybody needs to step up and be transparent, but especially, you know, our city government, our city leaders, they need to just reveal what's going on instead of saying, hey, that's sensitive information, or the people don't understand how that works, or you don't need to know that. That's blatant disrespect to the people of Baltimore.
All right, we'll leave it right there. Giovanni Patterson, Chairman of Peace, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, a recent TikTok trend putting Hyundais and Kias at risk of being stolen, and a great number of them here in Baltimore have been. Up next, we'll tell you about the ongoing legal battle and the steps you can take to keep your car.
And we're taking a break from the 90s, finally, back in the mid-80s today, and that's where we're going to stay as we head into the first week of August, starting on Tuesday. I'll let you know exactly how long this relief from the heat and the humidity is going to last in a couple of minutes. It's 8:08. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News.
All right, data shows a rise in car thefts this year in Baltimore. Nearly 400 cars were stolen last week alone. Fox 45's Amy Simpson explains finding and holding car thieves accountable. It is an uphill battle.
It was a BPD car.
We've had a departmental car that's been stolen with police equipment in it.
An unmarked 2018 silver Kia Optima. Just one of the latest to be stolen by thieves in Baltimore City.
It's a serious public safety hazard because these cars are, they're stolen. Usually it's juveniles that are doing it. It's that TikTok challenge.
The safety chair of the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association pointing to a social media craze, prompting some Hyundais and Kias to be hot-wired with just a USB cable. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration also blaming TikTok, saying millions of cars nationwide are potential targets. But even as the car makers offer free software upgrades to bolster security for impacted models, the thefts only continue. Between July 1st and July 23rd, Baltimore police say 312 Hyundais and 134 Kias were stolen across the city.
But unfortunately, very few of these folks are getting caught, and even fewer are getting actually prosecuted or getting any kind of consequence. So then it becomes like it's a free-for-all. There's very little risk of getting caught, very little downside. Seems pretty safe to do it and get away with it.
Even if a suspect is identified, proving felony theft is no simple task.
Because factually, how do you prove that this person broke into the car and stole the car? Not everybody has a Ring doorbell or security camera.
Attorney Jeremy Eldridge says that's why sometimes a lesser charge is pursued.
The crime at that point may be what's called unauthorized use, meaning you're simply operating a motor vehicle owned by another without their consent.
But this lawyer says unauthorized use is instead a misdemeanor offense and carries a sentence of anywhere from 6 months to 4 years, down from a 5 to 10-year sentence if convicted of felony theft, and levying consequences only more challenging if a juvenile is accused.
When someone is young and they're prosecuted within the juvenile justice system, especially for an auto theft, which is incredibly inconvenient for the victim, but is not a crime of violence, the legislature has mandated essentially that they receive probation. So you're going to see somewhat of a revolving door in these cases.
The best way to protect yourself and your car, this attorney says, install a surveillance camera. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Baltimore leaders recently reached a settlement with Hyundai and Kia for $200 million. It's part of an ongoing lawsuit claiming those cars were just too easy to steal and the thefts were a public nuisance. Youth car thefts also spiking throughout the state here. Just this week, 3 teenagers, young girls, caught by a vehicle owner around 2 a.m. Friday morning in Anne Arundel County while trying to steal that car. 3 hours later, another attempted car theft happened just a few miles away from there. Now, Anne Arundel police arrested a 15-year-old 13 miles away in North Baltimore.
I've been told that they were a bunch of kids. They need to be held accountable for their crime.
In Baltimore County, 587 Kias and 240 Hyundais have been stolen this year. Most of the thefts fueled by that TikTok challenge. A General Assembly is going to meet this fall to hold a hearing on juvenile justice concerns. Luke Clippinger, a Baltimore City delegate and the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, is voicing concerns that the Department of Juvenile Services is not adequate. The 2022 annual report detailed chronic boredom among juvenile kids in the facilities. Some of those problems include limited access to books and few programs available to help them rehabilitate. Clippinger is promising that during the hearing, attorneys, law enforcement, and DJS will work on ways to hold young people accountable while getting them on the right path.
When that happens, that should be a world-stopping occasion. After we passed the legislation, what became clear over the last year is that there are not the services that are necessary for these kids. There just aren't, and we were promised those services.
The representative also saying lawmakers will reevaluate juvenile justice laws. Multiple legislators have raised concerns over laws preventing kids from under the age of 13 from being charged with some crimes, limiting the questioning of juvenile suspects, and curbing probation time. Meanwhile, an autopsy report revealed the new details on the moments leading up to Roy McGrath's death. In our next half hour, we'll have an inside look at the circumstances surrounding the shootout that killed the former governor's chief of staff. And after a stormy weekend, the rain looks like it's cleared on out. Meteorologist Amy Aronson has your 7-day forecast. That's ahead. Stick with us here in Fox 45 Morning News Weekend Edition, all local, all morning. Well, if you were looking for a break from the heat, a break from the humidity, well, meteorologist Amy Aronson's got some good news for you. Let's get on over to her.
Yeah, about time, right? We've been through a pretty hot week. We've added days to our 90-degree day counter for the year. We're now up to 21, and that puts us closer to average. We should be at 30 by the end of the year. Haven't seen any 100-degree days just yet, although it certainly felt like it. Today, not going to be the case. We're taking a break from all the hot temperatures. The sun is getting higher and higher in the sky with the blue skies, but it's not sending us a ton of heat today. Temperatures are off to a comfortable start, low 70s to begin. We are enjoying that break from the heat, the humidity, with a mostly dry start to the week, too. Looks like our next chance for storms will actually hold off until later this week, and highs in the mid-80s today, so that's much better. We have a cold front to thank for that relief. That has dipped to our south, taking the humid air with it. So drier air has filtered in behind it, along with the storm-free weather map. So things are looking nice and quiet here. We had some feisty storms roll through yesterday evening. They're also long gone. So we're not really tracking any rain chances today. High temperatures will end up in the mid-80s this afternoon. We do see a couple of showers work their way through overnight tonight while most of us are sleeping. Not a big deal. No severe weather here, just a couple of showers overnight through early tomorrow morning. So Monday morning around daybreak, don't be shocked if you encounter a brief shower. They should get out of here by the end of the morning, and after that, clouds give way to sun, and we end up in the mid-80s again. So lots of mid-80s as we head through the week. Today, no exception. We've got a perfect day if you want to spend it on the water, by the pool, maybe just at home. It's going to be really, really nice. We've got a mix of clouds and sun, with high temperatures actually close to where they should be for this time of year. And we don't have the humidity, so it's actually going to feel like the numbers you're seeing here on this hour-by-hour planner. We don't have to talk about a heat index today or tonight for that matter. So it's going to be pleasant for dining out or maybe some grilling this evening. Low 80s at that point. After sunset, temperatures will cool off back into the 70s and eventually the mid-60s again by Monday morning. Plan on that stray shower early Monday morning for your Monday morning drive, but after that, we're mostly dry at least through Wednesday. Temperature-wise, we're in fantastic shape. We're in the low 80s at that point. Our next round of spotty storms shows up by the end of the week, Thursday into Friday. Even through Saturday, though, temperatures are expected to stay close to average and in the upper 80s. Remember, you can always use that QR code you see at the bottom of your 7-day forecast. If you want to use it, all you have to do is scan it with your phone, and it's going to take you right to our WBFF weather app. You can also get all these weather updates there. Taylor?
All right, Mayor Brandon Scott joined the Baltimore Fire Department in a neighborhood sweep in Northeast Baltimore on Saturday. It's in response to a recent deadly fire in the neighborhood. The mayor and emergency officials going door to door to make sure people know the importance of having a working smoking alarm. If it doesn't have a smoke alarm at each level inside those buildings, the city is installing them for free. Fire officials are also telling families to prepare an evacuation plan in the case of a fire. The MTA wants to hear from you about their proposal for a new east-west red line. We'll tell you how to make your voice heard this week. And the O's winning streak, not enough to pack out Camden Yards. Why one analyst says what could be hindering attendance. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning. Now, this week, Maryland's Department of Transportation wants you to weigh in on the governor's red line expansion plan. It's part of a $70 billion initiative to improve public transportation in and around Baltimore. But one policy expert is calling the plan a gamble with taxpayer dollars. This week, transportation leaders want to hear from Baltimore residents on plans to build an east-west transit line that will connect communities like Bayview in Baltimore County to Woodlawn in Baltimore City. The Red Line expansion aims to integrate Baltimore into the Metro subway system that extends into D.C., a plan previously squashed by former Governor Larry Hogan due to high cost to the taxpayer. This new regional transit plan comes in at $70 billion. The Red Line accounts for more than half of the project. Maryland Public Policy Fellow Randall O'Toole.
The goal of transit is to transfer money from taxpayers to powerful special interest groups. Then the Red Line makes perfect sense. Who benefits from it are the builders, the rail contractors, the rail car manufacturers.
O'Toole's biggest critique, though, ridership does not stack up against the cost. In 2021, according to the Census Bureau, just over 3% of people took Baltimore public transit to work. A post-pandemic drop, though, from an already low 7% in 2019.
No way that it makes sense to spend that much money to carry that few riders. They don't ride transit to work. Less than 10% take transit to work. And yet the taxes that are used to support transit are, many of them are very regressive.
The regional transit plan anticipates the presence of the Metro as an option would increase the number of people who opt out of driving in favor for a ride on the Red Line. essentially cutting down on congestion.
They're going to say congestion is terrible. We need to fix it. Light rail is the solution. Well, light rail makes congestion worse. You're going to have light rail in the streets. You're going to have light rail crossing streets. And these big light rail trains are going to be occupying a lot of space. They're not going to be carrying very many people.
Those are the kind of concerns leaders want to hear about as the plan now moves into the development phase, with public comment ending on August 2nd. Now, Governor Moore is hoping to have the Red Line up and running by this fall. He says it'll be a vital pipeline between Baltimore and the surrounding communities.
This city has hundreds of thousands of jobs, but people cannot access them easily. They understood that we have some of the best colleges and hospitals, museums and theaters in the world, and they're all difficult to get to. They understood that our economy is stable but not dynamic, and that our GDP has been falling behind cities like Washington and Philadelphia and Boston for years.
His announcement comes 8 years after former Governor Larry Hogan killed the light rail project in 2015. It at the time was slated for just under $3 billion.
This is going to be very expensive. We're talking about almost $3 billion for this 14-mile line. So that is about $200 million per mile. That's expensive. So I'm really concerned about the price tag, but also that it's really not going to serve as many people as they'd hoped.
The federal government then had committed to covering almost a third of that price tag. At this point, Governor Moore has applied for federal grants. New details on a teen who was tased by police last night in northwest Baltimore. We'll show you that security camera footage of the entire incident. And a new autopsy report answers some questions about Roy McGrath's death. An inside look at the FBI manhunt that ended in a shootout. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News, all local, all morning.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 Morning News.
Good morning to you, and thanks for being with us this Sunday, July 30th. We're off to a sunny start. I'm Taylor Stewart, and let's get right to your forecast. Meteorologist Amy Aronson's got some good news for you.
Yeah, finally, some relief from the brutal heat and the humidity. We're tracking temperatures dropping today. We're actually down about 4 to 5 degrees now in most locations. What's making the difference, though, the humidity levels. They have dropped significantly. That means it actually feels like the temperatures you're seeing here on this map. Upper 60s, low 70s to begin your Sunday morning. Feels fantastic. I would definitely plan on some outside time today. Enjoy some fresh air. We've got a lot of sunshine ahead of us. Low 80s by midday, upper 80s to wrap things up this afternoon. Now, coming up in 10 minutes, I'll let you know exactly how long this relief from the heat, the humidity, and also the storms is going to last. Taylor?
An autopsy report reveals new details about the moments leading up to Roy McGrath's death. McGrath, a former aide to then Governor Larry Hogan, died in a shootout in Tennessee weeks after a long FBI manhunt. Now, these new findings come nearly 4 months after his death. Fox 45's Jeff Abel has the latest.
We are learning a lot more about the final moments of Roy McGrath's life and about his final words to police. "I have a gun," he told them, "and it's loaded." He was the former governor's chief of staff who was accused of cheating the state out of more than $250,000. But when his federal fraud trial was set to open in March, Roy McGrath was nowhere to be found.
Unfortunately, Mr. McGrath has not appeared in court today, and I'm unaware of where he is or what is going on.
The judge issued a warrant for McGrath's arrest, and the FBI launched a search of his home in Naples, Florida, then began searching the country. 3 weeks later, agents found McGrath sitting in a Cadillac outside a Costco in Knoxville, Tennessee. Documents released detail what happened next. According to the district attorney, officers attempted to stop McGrath, who drove out of the parking lot and down the street. Less than a mile away, with officers in pursuit, investigators say McGrath drove off the highway and came to a stop between a drive-in and an auto supply store. It was here where police say McGrath failed to comply with commands and instead shouted, "I have a gun, and it's loaded." Investigators write that the way McGrath held the handgun placed agents within the trajectory of McGrath's gun. McGrath fired his gun, striking his right temple, and at the same time, the agent fired one round, striking McGrath's left cheek. Autopsy results released say medical examiners were unable to determine which of the two gunshot wounds caused McGrath's death.
And so you've got these simultaneous events going on.
Professor and forensic scientist Joseph Scott Morgan says because of the timing and complexity of the injuries, we may never know if McGrath's life ended by suicide or homicide.
And for this to be such a high-profile case and involving gunplay, and for them not to be able to make a determination and to leave this undetermined, in my experience at least, this is certainly an outlier. This is a 1 in a million event.
Prosecutors have concluded that the agents did act in self-defense. Their actions, they say, was justifiable. They have no plans on filing criminal charges. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Police say officers tased an armed teenager in northwest Baltimore just last night along Borman Avenue and Reisterstown Road. Here's a look at the large police presence on the scene just before 7 p.m. Now, Fox 45 News obtained surveillance video from a nearby store owner. Police tell us they were chasing this 15-year-old right there, attempting to make a handgun arrest. And you can see that teen throw the gun into a nearby building as he runs away. Now, seconds later, another camera angle shows an officer appearing to tase the suspect, who then falls face first onto the sidewalk. Police tell us the teen was taken to shock trauma with non-life-threatening injuries. Meanwhile, a third video here a few seconds later, police are seen going back into that building where the gun was thrown. They found it, brought it out. Now, this is what they say they recovered at the scene. We'll continue to bring you an update as they become available. Now, the Orioles are having their best season in almost a decade, but despite the home runs and RBIs, ticket sales are only at half capacity for home games. A local economist says Baltimore's crime crisis could be to blame. Vincent Hill has the latest.
The Orioles are #1 in the AL East, something not seen since 2014. Mayor Brandon Scott is confident the team will go all the way.
And I look forward to seeing us win the World Series and eliminate the Spankers in the playoffs later this year at Oriole Park.
But when it comes to filling seats, the O's are ranked 23rd out of the 30 MLB teams, according to BaseballReference.com.
So the mayor should be talking about, we care about your safety when you come to Baltimore. We take that very seriously. We're doing things to make you safer in a city that has been quite dangerous historically.
Economist Aniban Basu says the mayor should be less focused on home runs and more on crime stats that could be affecting ticket sales.
A lot of people have become accustomed to not going to downtown Baltimore. Not having those fans come downtown, that has a huge negative economic impact.
In the backdrop of Camden Yards, the murder of Timothy Reynolds by a squeegee kid last year. This year, 2 shootings, 2 carjackings, and 4 robberies, all within a mile of the field. Basu says the O's attendance is not the only thing at stake because of crimes around the ballpark.
You're not just celebrating its success and rooting for our team against the Yankees or whomever it happens to be, but it's a community event. It's our shared community well-being that's at stake.
The mayor himself acknowledging changes need to be made.
We want to see at Camden Yards what you see around other ballparks. More development, more activation, more things happening.
Basu believes those changes may not come until the bottom of the 9th for the Scott administration.
It's a change in the air. We have a mayoral election next year. And so I really view, and this might sound naive, that Baltimore City is going to have a great renaissance later this decade.
Republicans claiming the country is operating on a two-tiered justice system, comparing investigations of former President Trump to Hunter Biden. I'm Janae Bowens in Washington with the details.
And we're finally enjoying a break from the 90s and the humidity. We'll spend today in the mid and upper 80s. I'll let you know exactly how long this break will last and when we are tracking more showers and storms in a couple of minutes. It's 8:37. You're watching Fox 45 Morning News.
Now, Republican presidential candidates are hitting the campaign trail hard in Iowa. 13 candidates got on stage pleading their case to voters, with the Republican caucus less than 6 months away. The two frontrunners, former President Donald Trump and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, not holding any punches.
I pledge to be the president to finally solve the issue of the southern border. We're sending the military to the border. Yes, we will build a border wall. And we will use deadly force against the Mexican drug cartels because I'm sick of them poisoning our kids, I'm sick of them killing our citizens, and I'm sick of them trafficking people into this country. That ends on January 20th, 2025.
DeSantis is losing to Biden in all cases. I wouldn't take a chance on that one. I'm leading in the primary polls by 50 and 55% against him and others. And a poll just came out where I'm leading in Iowa. We love Iowa by 34 points.
Now, those comments come as former President Trump faces more charges in his classified documents case. Those 3 new counts include willful retention of national defense information and 2 obstruction charges related to possible attempts to delete surveillance footage of Mar-a-Lago. There's also a new defendant in this case. A Trump spokesperson says the charges are another attempt by the Biden administration to harass the former president and influence the 2024 election. Republicans are doubling down on their claims that the country is operating with a two-tiered justice system. This as former President Trump faces new charges. They're also concerned by how quickly his investigations are going compared to the Justice Department probe into President Biden's classified documents and Hunter Biden's business dealings. Sinclair correspondent Janae Bowens explains.
Critics are blasting the Justice Department over the handling of former President Donald Trump's classified documents case. On Thursday, it was announced Trump now faces more charges.
This is done for public consumption at a minimum. This is a real speaking indictment for public consumption.
Republicans accused the Justice Department of slow-walking investigations into President Biden and his son Hunter and weaponizing the government to take down Biden's main political opponent.
If you have a government that's been turned against the very people it's supposed to serve, turned against we the people, that's a problem.
The White House denies the allegations.
The president respects the Department of Justice, their independence. He has been very steadfast on making sure that the rule of law comes back in this administration.
The former president speaking out on his social media platform, Truth Social, saying in part, whatever happened to the crooked Joe Biden documents case, he had 20 times more boxes than I did. He goes on to say, almost nothing was done. Republicans who argue there's a two-tier justice system rigged against them are also calling out the length of the Hunter Biden investigation for potential violations of tax and money laundering laws. It started back in 2018.
And we are going to make sure that there's a single standard of justice in this country. You know, if Hunter Biden were a Republican, he probably would have been in jail 3 years ago.
The White House says when it comes to Hunter, they're letting the Justice Department handle it.
From a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
Justice Watch, a conservative oversight group, has filed a lawsuit against the Justice Department for records pertaining to Hunter Biden. Now, they say the Justice Department has obstructed an IRS investigation implicating President Joe Biden. In Washington, I'm Janae Bowens.
Meanwhile, a federal judge has dismissed Trump's defamation lawsuit against CNN. That suit centered around the former president's election fraud claims, which the network refers to as the big lie. In this ruling, the judge said the former president's statements were rooted in opinion and therefore not liable under defamation law. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis also facing backlash over his state's new school curriculum regarding slavery. Senator Tim Scott, the only black Republican senator, says there is no silver lining to slavery, referencing a section of Florida school super guidelines that suggests black slaves develop skills while they were enslaved. DeSantis says in no way should his curriculum take away from the atrocities of slavery in the U.S. Well, things did not go well for this man in Ohio trying to rob a bank. Police body camera shows him falling through the roof right into a trash can as he was trying to escape. But police had an easy time arresting him. When asked why he tried to rob the bank, the man said he was broke. Extreme measures there. Well, nothing to steal in here. We got steals and deals for you, and they're good prices.
The following segment is sponsored by Naki.
I found this neat little dry pack that I think you're really gonna like. This is Yugo Wear. There's so many uses. You could take this if you're going to the beach, if you're going to the pool, if you're going to a splash pad with the kids. I'm gonna show you how this works. It's waterproof, so you unzip it, and I'm gonna add my phone. It's got all my pictures, pretty much my life. You can also add a wallet, and then I'm gonna add my keys, okay? You zip it, and when you zip it, you know, it's securely into place. Nothing is coming in and out. All right, this is my phone. It's got my life on it. So here you go. It's in the water. We're going to splash it. I'm holding it down, but if I let it go, it floats. So you could take it into the water. It's not going to sink. It's going to float. All right, I want to show you this too. Look right there. You can still use the camera in this mode. And there you go. You can take pictures under the water, in the water. Your phone is safe. All right, so let's unzip it. You got to put some muscle into unzipping it because it fastens securely into place. And everything is safe in here. The other thing I like about this, you could even take this to games because it's the appropriate size for the stadium. You could use this if you're biking. We're offering right now, 30% off Yugo Wear. There's so much you can do with this, not just the water if you're a commuter. So take advantage of the 30% off Yugo Wear. Head to asadeals.com for the exclusive offer.
Making headlines this morning, authorities in Alabama have arrested a woman after she admitted to lying about being kidnapped. But she's only facing 2 misdemeanor charges now. Megan Serrano from our affiliate in Birmingham explains why officials are so frustrated.
Judging from the amount of phone calls and emails that we've received from people all over the country, I know many are shocked and appalled that Miss Russell is only being charged with 2 misdemeanors, despite all the panic and disruption her actions caused. Let me assure you, I too share the same frustration, but existing laws only allow the charges that were filed to be filed.
Both Hoover Police Chief Nick Durzis and Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall did not count out that more charges could be forthcoming.
We will continue to monitor this investigation to determine whether or not there are any additional charges that need to be brought, and we'll evaluate those as the facts are presented.
In Carly Russell's initial statement from her attorney earlier this week, Russell claims she acted alone. In the investigation so far, Chief Durzis says police are still in the dark as to where Russell was during the 49 hours she was missing and if she indeed acted alone.
As the Attorney General said, their team will also be searching through our files, and we'll find out what they say.
So what are the next steps?
Right now, the Attorney General's office attorneys will start dealing with our detectives and going through case files and preparing prosecution, I presume.
Has there been any decision about a possible civil suit against Carly and or her family?
We have not discussed that. Of course, we talked about the hours of overtime and all the significant resources that we used, and we'll certainly be talking to the Attorney General's office about possibly getting some of those funds returned to us.
Wow, it's a crazy story there. It's still not clear why Russell made up the story in the first place, which could lead up to a year in jail and a $6,000 fine. Well, let's get on over to your Sunday forecast. Meteorologist Amy Aronson is letting us know how we're looking on this first week of August eventually. Wow.
Yeah, heading into August. Looking back at July, we've had a lot of rain, actually above average rainfall totals for the month with just shy of 7 inches. For the year, we're catching up. We're now at 21 inches. Normally at this point in the year, we're around 25 inches, so we're just about 4 inches below where we should be. Not bad. Maybe you've got some lawn work to do after all the recent rain and the heat and the humidity. Today looks much better for it, so I'm giving it the green light. Dry and comfortable today. Pool time, you get the green light too. Bright and sunny. Same for boating on the bay. It's going to be nice and calm. And whatever you're doing today, soaking up the sunshine, enjoying some fresh air, we want to see your pictures. Share them with us by heading to foxbaltimore.com/chime in, and then we can show them right here tomorrow morning on Fox 45. We've got sunshine high in the sky right now. Blue sky shining down on the Inner Harbor. Feeling fantastic. Low 70s technically, but we've got dew points back in the 60s. That's a welcome change. The lower the dew point, the drier the air. We currently have a nice dry air mass that has taken over. And that's all in wake of a weather maker that moved through yesterday. Sent us a nasty line of storms last night, produced some wind damage, some downed trees. That's long gone. That's to our south there. Coming in behind it, that drier air is filtering in and taking over. And that's going to continue to be the case today with one little exception. We've got a little itty-bitty disturbance scooting through tonight. Not a big deal. We'll send us some rain overnight tonight while most of us are sleeping, straight through tomorrow morning. Wraps up right around daybreak. And after that, clouds give way to sun, and then we're in good shape again, actually for the first half of the week. Temperature-wise, we're in great shape. 70s to start, 80s to end today, mid to upper 80s to end, plus not as humid, so more comfortable for sitting poolside. On Monday, similar setup. We've got a nice day ahead of us with temperatures in the upper 70s and then low 80s, and we are dry by the afternoon tomorrow. And we'll actually stay dry all the way through Wednesday with highs briefly below average and in the mid and low 80s. As we head through week's end, I am tracking some spotty storms both Thursday and Friday. Looks like we're dry to kick off next weekend and staying very seasonable with highs hanging out in the mid to upper 80s each day. Taylor?
Well, the FIFA Women's World Cup games for today ended more than an hour ago. Well, Colombia got the win over Germany 2-1. Here are some scores from earlier games that happened this morning. Morocco beat out South Korea 1-0. Norway beating the Philippines 6-0. And lastly, Switzerland and New Zealand tied with neither team's getting a goal. Fox 45 News is your home for the FIFA Women's World Cup, which will create some changes in our morning news lineup starting tomorrow. You can watch our morning newscast starting at 4:30 a.m. on the CW Baltimore, while World Cup action plays out right here on Fox 45. So switch back and forth, why don't you? That ends around 8 o'clock. Our morning news will return to Fox 45 at that time. And then Tuesday, it's going to be slightly different here. Our morning news will return to Fox 45 at 9 a.m. The U.S. women will be playing against Portugal. And then Wednesday, we're going to start again on the CW Baltimore at 4:30 a.m. We'll be back here on Fox 45 starting at 8 o'clock. A cooler week than we've seen in the past few days, but those summer temperatures, they're not going anywhere yet. Meteorologist Amy Aronson returns with your exclusive 10-day forecast just ahead.
8:56 on this bright and sunny Sunday morning. Such a welcome change this morning after 3 weather alert days in a row. It's been hot, it's been humid, kind of been pretty unbearable. Actual temperatures well into the upper 90s, feel like temperatures in the triple digits. We're taking a break from all of that. Mid-80s today, really nice. We're looking at a nice mix of sun and clouds, mostly sun actually. Tomorrow morning we start off with a stray shower early, right around daybreak, but the rest of the day is dry and comfortable still with highs in the mid-80s. Tuesday and Wednesday, we stay mostly dry with below average temperatures. So this week's going to be better for any yard work you want to get done outside. We'll spend much of the week in the mid and low 80s. Even Thursday and Friday, I am throwing that storm chance back in, but not bad. 30% chance both days, so not a washout. Plus temperatures will stay below that 90-degree mark. So it looks like August is off to a cooler start. Mid-80s will take us through week's end and heading into next weekend too for the first weekend of a brand new month already.
Sounds good. Well, today's the last day of Baltimore Restaurant Week, so
ooh, take advantage.
Exactly. Good
outdoor dining.
You and I have the same idea, man. We have the same idea. Hopefully you get outside today, enjoyed the weather. Thanks for checking in with us. We're back here at 10:30 a.m.